Imagine you got the job you spent 33 years working toward, a dream job. The first week, everything is what you imagined. The second week, you find out your company has been hiding something for over a decade, something that killed people. That actually happened. It happened to a CEO, and what she did in the next 90 days is something that most CEOs would not have done. Most leaders would not have done it. And the reason you need to know about it is because the same instinct that almost sank her in those first 90 days is the one quietly running the show the next time you walk into a mess that isn't yours. I'm Dr. Kara, and today we're breaking down why. Quick thing before we go in. If you want to keep talking to me about any of this after this video ends, I've built something. A free way for you to ask me follow-up questions anytime you like. The link is in the description. January 15th, 2014, Mary Barra became the CEO of General Motors. She was the first woman to ever run a major automaker. She'd been at GM for 33 years. She came up through engineering. She knew the company from inside out. 16 days into the job, she got a briefing that nobody wants. GM had a defect in its ignition switches. The switches could shut off the engine while you were still driving. And when the engine shut off, the airbags would not deploy. People had died, 124 people by the official count. And the part that I want you to sit with, the defect had been known inside the company for more than 10 years, and no one had said anything. Now, stop right there, because this is the moment that most leaders fail. You inherit a mess that isn't yours. You had nothing to do with the decade of decisions that led you here, and every instinct in your body is telling you to distance yourself from it. Hire a PR firm. Blame the previous regime. Minimize the exposure. Protect your name. That's the playbook. That's what most CEOs would do. This CEO did almost the exact opposite. She walked toward it. She owned it publicly. She testified to Congress within 10 weeks of becoming CEO. And then she let the independent investigator dig through everything and publish whatever he found. The report came back brutal. What she stepped into required a very specific kind of leadership. And that's the same kind of leadership you need the next time you inherit something that you didn't break. So let's walk through these 3 moves that she made in the first 90 days and what each one is actually teaching you about how to lead when the mess isn't yours. Move 1. She didn't try to control the narrative. She hired a former U.S. attorney to run an independent investigation. She told him to follow the trial wherever it went. And when his report came back, it used phrases like a pattern of incompetence and neglect, words that were brutal for the company, words a careful CEO would have buried. She published it. She let the truth be louder than her image. That's the move. Move 2. She made it safe to tell the truth going forward. She launched a program called Speak Up for Safety. And here's what most coverage of this misses. The reason the defect went underreported for 10 years was not because employees didn't know. They knew. They didn't say anything because the culture punished people who escalated bad news. Speak Up for Safety wasn't a slogan, it was a structural change. She built actual channels for employees to bring problems straight to senior leadership without going through the manager who might want to bury it. And then she fired 15 people who had been a part of the failure. That's the part that most people miss. Making it safe for people to tell the truth and holding people accountable for hiding it are not opposite moves. They're the same move. Move 3. She set up the compensation fund before she was forced to. She brought in a lawyer who handled compensation for the families of the victims, and she gave him almost no limits. By the end of 2025, GM had paid out close to $600 million to victims and their families, and she did it without waiting for a single courtroom to force her hand. She made it right while she still had the power to choose how. Here's what I want you to actually take away from this. You don't need a crisis the size of the GM CEO to use any of this. Every leader inherits something. A team that's tired, a process that's broken, a culture that's quietly toxic, a predecessor's promises you never agreed to. The question isn't whether you inherited it. The question is, what do you do with the first 90 days after you find out about it? Because the instinct most leaders reach for in that moment is self-protection dressed up as strategy. They spend their first weeks building a quiet case for why the mess isn't really theirs, and everybody around them can feel it happening, even when nobody names it. The trust gets eaten alive in the first 6 weeks, and they don't even know what's happening. What the CEO of GM did was took the confidence that most leaders have not built yet. Not arrogance, not certainty, confidence in her own worth that didn't depend on the company looking good. She could let that brutal report get published, fire the people who hid the failure, and walk into Congress and apologize because none of that touched what she knew about herself. That's the move underneath all the moves. Every leader who handles a hard inheritance well has the same thing in common. They know who they are before the mess shows up. And that mess can shake it loose. If you want to know how you tend to lead when you walk into something hard, the free quiz on my site will show you. It takes about 5 minutes. The link is in the description. You lead well. Now lead yourself. I'm Dr. Kara. Connect to yourself first, then elevate and expand for those you lead. Until we connect again.